This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Empathy is what separates human beings from the rest of the living creatures on planet Earth. That instinctual ability to understand and share the feelings of others. Learning to see with your heart and connect with what is unsaid. The difficulty resides in making the problems of others take precedent over your own. We get wrapped up in our lives for a short time, getting blinded to those in need. Little do we know that freedom and healing can be found in serving others. For a select few, they are ethnocentrically selfish, believing they are the center of the universe. Nothing can be said and nothing can be done to wake them from their self-centered slumber. We can only hope that the moment of realization is not at the cost of their souls. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment. You can ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new episodes, and now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out exactly what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome a dear friend, and that's Yvonne Elwood. We're going to discuss the suffering of a narcissist. I was going to make this episode all about me, but I figured we'll get into your story first, and then we'll do it from there. Thank you very much for coming in.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Before we get into anything, I want to throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. I was just there, and they couldn't have treated me any better. So as police officers and podcasters, we don't trust anybody, but we do trust Toyota Hackensack. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So Yvonne, each week we take a question from our audience. This one comes from Suntastic Bella. Okay. And it says, people close to you reveal your blind spots. So what are your blind spots? Now, we all have blind spots. We all have things that we miss in our daily life. And I rely on those people near me to sort of give me that little warning of things that I missed. So what are your blind spots?
I think probably, based on a discussion, maybe I'm a cynic. I'm not always taking things at face value. I trust people, but
you don't trust people.
But
you trust people, yet you don't trust people.
Right.
But that comes over time. You know, I believe that's a learned behavior. So the purest form of any human being is a small baby.
Yes.
Small baby trusts everybody.
Right.
Until they become jaded by life.
Right.
So I think that's a natural progression, especially going through some trauma. Would you agree with that?
I would think so. I think that's exactly probably the root of where that came from.
It's almost like a self-defense mechanism.
Exactly.
So I rely on those people around me. I have this huge blind spot. I like to see the best in people. I like to see their potential. I like to see where I think they could be. Unfortunately, some people have less than honorable or ethical reasoning behind what they're doing. They'll use you.
Right.
Thankfully, I have a group of people around me that'll tell me, hey, dude, this is not a good relationship. Something's off here. Something's wrong here. And in the past, I would say, yeah, let me see how this will play out.
Right.
But I've learned to trust those people. And I've learned to trust my gut, because even though they're telling me something that I kind of already know in my gut, and we had this social media question last week. It's like, how much do you trust your gut? I've learned to trust my gut a lot more.
Yeah.
But my gut, coupled with those people around me who I trust, now I have something powerful. Now I have something concrete that I can grab onto.
Right.
So those blind spots, I rely on those people who are around me all the time to make me aware of those blind spots, because we can't see everything, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So Suntastic Bella, thank you for sending that question. And keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. And while you're at it, go to 234 Franklin Avenue in Nutley, New Jersey. Go see Gus over at Cubita Cafe. Tell him the Suffering Podcast sent you, and I guarantee you will have one of the best meals that you've ever had. His empanadas, all handmade. He's a classically trained chef, and I've yet to have a bad meal at Cubita Cafe. So go to 234 Franklin Avenue, and again, tell him the Suffering Podcast sent you. So, Yvonne, for those of you who are wondering who Yvonne Elwood is, you'll see posts every once in a while on my Instagram that you've invited me as a collaborator.
Yes.
And when I see a quote that you put up there that really hits home, really hits me in the heart, I gravitate towards it. And you had a great one that's written on your cup today that I want to point out, and I want you to read that for everybody.
Okay, so the cup, it was a quote that I saw that says, "It's not hate if it's the truth." And that really resonated with me because it seems like the current climate, it's everything. If you don't like this, then you're that. If you don't like this, then... And I don't think that's true.
I think people are afraid to hear the truth.
I think they are.
And when you call somebody out on their bullshit, it's a hard pill for somebody to swallow.
Absolutely.
You know, you think a certain way about yourself or what you're doing or what you believe in. And when somebody, again, it's pointing out that blind spot, getting back to the social media question.
Right.
You know, you become so ingrained in a way of thinking that you get that tunnel vision.
Right.
So your husband, Pat, and I got to throw out Pat because I got to embarrass the hell out of him. You know, as the first thing they teach us in the academy is don't get tunnel vision.
Right.
So that's your blind spots, right?
Right.
So you don't see the big picture. You don't see the totality of the circumstances that everybody likes to talk about. You're focused on one thing, even though all this negative stuff is coming at you on the side.
Right.
So I like that quote. I'm gonna have to steal. I may steal that quote. I steal all my quotes. I'm just gonna let you know.
It's on my story. Repost it.
Yeah, I'll just repost it. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself? Where'd you grow up? What was your house like?
So I grew up in a West Texas town called Lubbock in Texas.
Buddy Holly.
Buddy Holly.
Yes.
Texas Tech University.
Yeah.
Go Red Raiders.
Yeah, that's
Guns up.
So, for those of you who don't know who Buddy Holly is, I guarantee they know the song "The Day the Music Died," which is all about American Pie. That was the plane they were on when they crashed. Big day for Lubbock.
Big day for Lubbock.
Yeah.
And you know, Waylon Jennings is from Levelland, so not too far from there. And
Who lost his seat on that airplane on February 3rd,
right.
1959. I think it's 58 or 59.
Yep.
Waylon Jennings lost his seat on in a card game with Richie Valens, and the rest is history.
History. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so that's an interesting place, Texas.
It
And
is.
I actually got to go there very soon, and it's just such a wide expanse, freedom.
Yes.
You know, and then you move to New Jersey. You're like anti-freedom.
Well, I didn't come straight here. I actually came to New Jersey by way of Australia. I lived in Australia for about 5 years.
What you got tired of the open space?
I needed something even more open, right?
Yeah, right. You know, you went from this to this. And you tired of having money too, probably. So what brought you to New Jersey?
So my husband before, Patrick, was a businessman. He was a university professor, but he also had an engineering company, and he was doing a lot of work in the East Coast of the U.S., and his partner said, why don't you move? So here we are.
So was it a little bit of a culture shock when you came to New Jersey?
New Jersey was yeah. It and sometimes it still is. But it's got some really great people, and it's got some beautiful places. So it is better than I thought it would be.
So I've traveled all around this country, and most places are pretty much the same. You know, they have a CVS on every corner. They got a McDonald's. They got whatever chain restaurant is in the other corner. But every once in a while, you go to those areas of the U.S. that are different.
Right.
Where was I? It was outside of Ithaca. You know, and my kids are very, very sheltered. And we're driving through, and there's like one gas station. And my son goes, well, what if you need gas? So I said, well, you got to plan ahead. This is what you got to do. And Texas, to me, is a lot like that.
Right.
You know, outside of the big cities anyway.
Right. Yeah. If you're traveling, you got to watch that gauge because you could be driving for a while.
So how old were you when you got married first time?
That would have been 27.
27. Okay, that's normal first marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was an engineer.
No,
No.
that's a different one.
Wait, hold on a second. So there's multiple.
I know. There's 3.
There's 3? Okay. Well, if
But,
you do
yeah.
it again, then shame on you.
Third time lucky.
Third time.
I hit the jackpot with this one. So.
Okay, but you understand that you're out of chances.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I just want to
yeah.
let you know that. if this one doesn't work out, I'm going to say, hey, listen, call it quits.
I no longer have a future ex-husband. He's the keeper.
Well, you know what? Just with Pat out there, just tell him you're taking that whole death do us part very clearly and show him the hole.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, you got to show him the hole. He accidentally died by getting hit in the head 3 times with a shovel. By the way, I have no foreknowledge of that, just in case that
It was
happens.
actually the iron from the Monopoly game.
Okay. It's like an episode of Clue.
That's it.
So tell me what this was your first husband who was traveling everywhere.
No, so my first husband was in the military. He was an Air Force guy.
Okay.
We were talking earlier about things. He looked great on paper. He looked great on paper, but no, that's about as far as that went.
So what drew you to him initially?
Well, I met him through some friends, and I grew up. My father was career Navy. My oldest brother, career Air Force, and it's just kind of been a way of life that I grew up with.
That
And
military lifestyle is tough. We
is.
just had a Navy SEAL in here, and it's not an easy life.
No, but I was very blessed because it was at the end of my father's career when I came around. So I wasn't one of these kids that got dragged around to all different places. But I liked that lifestyle, and I always thought, okay, if I'm not going to be in the military, marrying somebody in the military is not such a bad idea. I mean, I didn't go looking for him for that, but when I found out, he was captain and.
Well, you also got to think that I don't know your relationship with your father, but if your father was a good man, by default,
You would think.
Military men are good men.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but not so much.
Yeah, not so much.
So, tell me a little bit about the nature of the relationship, especially early on. The honeymoon phase and stuff like that.
It was really good. He was very charming. He was very intelligent. He was an academy grad, so he went to the Air Force Academy.
Very nice.
And like I said, he looked really, really good on paper. He was working his way, trying to make major, and he was very charming. He was athletic. We would go, we would do things, we would hike, we would
You had a lot of common
always-
interests, yeah.
Always going places, great conversations, sports, everything. So it was wonderful.
But eventually, throughout that type of relationship, you start seeing cracks.
Yes.
So there's always, in hindsight's always 20/20.
Yes.
You see that first crack.
Yes.
And, you kind of figure, well, you know what, everybody's got their own thing, and everybody's, nobody's perfect.
Right.
So what was the first crack you saw?
The first crack I saw was when no didn't mean no
With sex.
with sex.
Okay.
He tried to cross the line, and I kind of shut it down. And I think the phrase I used was, "You're entering a no-fly zone." And so he stopped until he figured out that I wasn't talking about my menstrual cycle.
Oh,
I was just
okay.
saying no.
Right.
And he went ahead and did it anyway.
Yeah, the whole, it's a sticky situation, the
It
whole
is.
marital rape thing, because it's extremely hard to prove in court.
Yep.
You've obviously had relations in the past. That's, if you haven't done that yet when you're married, shame
Right.
on you. And yet it's a real thing. It's you still have that right to say, no, it's
Right.
not the time. It's
Right.
not right. You got to feel it too.
Right.
Unfortunately, with the female species of the human race, there is no physical signs of attraction. There's no physical signs. With men, it's very simple, and I don't want
Right.
to. I don't want to get gross here, but you know
Right.
when that's ready to go. So for a woman, it's kind of like, what do you mean you're not ready? You're not showing me that you're not. Mm-hmm. So, and that had to do something. So when he took it by force
Yep.
the first time, what did that do to you psychologically?
That really set me back, and it made me feel even more like a loser because we weren't married yet. We were still dating.
Oh,
And I thought, you know what, maybe he had too much to drink. Maybe I was trying to create all kinds of excuses in my head. And what I've learned is I don't know if I was making the excuses to protect him or if I was making them to protect myself.
because what would happen if you told yourself the truth?
Exactly.
Okay, what would happen? So at that moment in your life, what is the truth to you? At that particular moment when he took what he wanted,
Right.
what was the real truth if you look back?
That he raped me.
That he raped you. That's the real truth, and that's a hard thing psychologically for any woman to get over, because the way, and what years are we talking about? Just so I'm
That would have been very early on, so I'm thinking it would have been 95.
so 95. The marital rape situation wasn't really. It was there, but it wasn't something that was very well spoken of. Plus, you have the whole rape thing. Now, I know a lot of women who have gone through rape. It's an awful thing for them, and psychologically they think they're damaged goods.
Yeah.
So you don't tell anybody, you don't talk
Right.
about it until later on in your life when you start to get a little bit of strength
Right.
in you. Is that something that would run through your head?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. And then I thought, other times, and there were, after that, there were episodes that when he would drink, he would become a different person. And I started seeing those signs. But I kept thinking, he's got a good career. When he's sober, he's great. It's wonderful. I can change him.
Oh,
If I had a dime.
the old female. Oh God, it's the biggest mistake females make. I
Yep.
can change him.
Yeah.
And that's why you see a lot of women go after these guys who they see the potential. So there's a blind spot right there.
Yeah.
You see that potential in a person. This person could be really great if I could just change this one thing.
Yep. Yep.
But unfortunately,
Yep. The first time I ever heard my daughter say that was, yeah, I know he's not great, but I can change him. And I'm like, sweetie, if you need to change him, he's not right for you.
you got to change yourself. You got to change your outlook. You got to change your perspective.
Right.
And that's where, that. So you had a child with him?
I did.
You did. I mean, so at least there's something good that came out of it.
Oh, something great that came out.
Right. But now, was that the only crack that you saw, or were there other things?
No, there were other things. It's interesting because when you're going through something, you don't always see what's going on. And of course, hindsight, Plus, I educated myself. This was new to me. I mean, I knew that there were things like rape, and I knew that there were things like spousal abuse, but not in my world.
No, you're stronger than that.
My home life was never like that. I didn't know anybody who went through stuff like that. So that wasn't what was happening with me. What was happening with me was an anomaly, right? It wasn't what it really was. And so I kept plugging at it. And the nastier he got, the harder I would try, oddly enough, to try to make it work.
So what if you could look back, he was getting nasty, yet still doing all this bad behavior.
Yeah.
Was the drinking, so what type of drinking are we talking about? Are we talking about binge drinking, or are we talking about the social drinking?
Well, it would start out social, and then it would get carried over. It would be one drink more, and then it was downhill.
Yeah, it's that tipping point.
To that point where, and I always could tell because his eyes would change colors.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like the Incredible Hulk.
It was kind of creepy.
Yeah.
It really, thinking back, it's scary because if I think about it, I can still see those eyes.
So why do you think he got so angry as the relationship moved on? Was he trying to make you into something that he wanted?
Part of it was I found out as we were together, he was in a very abusive home growing up.
So this was normal to him.
This was normal to him. And he got very controlling. He started isolating me. I could talk to my family when he said it was okay for me to talk to my family. I could go out with my friends, but he had to come along.
If you read a textbook about narcissists,
Oh, yeah.
this is it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember because, when you first start out, you get out of college and you're on your own for the first time and you don't have a lot of money. And I was working in a position where I needed to dress nicely. And my mom, bless her, is a gifted seamstress. She would make me work clothes. And I came home one day and he had the fire going in the fireplace.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, it's August in Texas. Why is there a fire going? And then I go to change clothes and half of my wardrobe is gone. Everything my mom had made me was in that fireplace.
Because there was something in your life that you did not rely on him for. Psychologically, that's the
Yeah.
whole thing of a narcissist. They want to make you reliant on them and only them, so your world becomes them.
Right.
You know, and that's what a narcissist is. Everything has to revolve around
Exactly.
them. And so he's getting agitated. He's getting aggravated. Where did it go from there?
So I asked him what was going on, and he said, you need better clothes than this. I'll take you. I'll get you what you need. And it just was step after step after step of everything you need comes from me. You don't need anything from anybody else. You don't need outside friendships. If we socialize together. And as time went on, my world was getting smaller. And then came the news they were going to transfer him. He was going to be going from Texas to Colorado. And he wanted me to go with him, and he asked me to marry him at my parents' house, midnight, New Year's Eve, going into the new year.
That's very cliche.
Very cliche. He proposed in front of everybody. I'm sitting there speechless because in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm at home with my family. I think I might just stay here because I don't like what is going to be waiting for me when I leave my family home.
So you're actually on your way out of the
I'm on
relationship.
my way out. And because I hesitated, he looked me in the eye and he said ever so softly, say yes. You will say yes, and we'll discuss this later.
Wow.
So I said yes.
And did you ever discuss it later?
No. We were married within 2 weeks
What was the rush?
because we were being transferred, and if we were married, then all of my stuff would get moved in and they'd pay for everything and we would be moving a household as one.
I mean, listen, so when I chose to get married, I wanted to get married, you know, again, I was my wife is younger than me, and I wanted to get married, or she wanted to have the big wedding. I did not want to have the big wedding. I even proposed to her. I said, look, we'll have what you want. I said, let's go down and get married. It was a financial decision. So I had good insurance. I was a police officer at the time. So I wanted to get her on my insurance because she was paying for insurance at the time. Afterwards, after the marriage, and listen, I loved my wedding and everything, but after the wedding, she actually turned to me and she goes, yeah, we should have done it your way too, and it would have saved a lot of money, but again, I'm conscious enough to know that I can't force this. Like, it's just not in me to force this. I want you to marry me. I really, with all my heart, I want you to marry me, but I can't force this.
Right.
It has to be your decision. It has to, I can ask, but the answer has to come with your heart.
Right.
And she's regretted it ever since.
I doubt that.
Yeah, 17 years later. Poor girl. So you get married. It's like, so let's save the relationship and have a baby. How many times you heard that one?
I have a daughter.
Yeah.
I thought that would do it.
Yeah.
That will calm him down.
If a child doesn't change a person, you're pretty sure that nothing's ever going to change a person. Because a child changed me 100%.
Well, if I had been thinking of things logically, well, first off, we wouldn't even be having this discussion, but he had a daughter from a previous marriage.
But you almost get Stockholm Syndrome. So the whole Patty Hearst thing,
Right.
You become institutionalized inside the relationship where you believe all this bullshit that he's saying.
And plus, I want to protect his daughter because she lives with us.
Right. And you grow to love them. And
Absolutely.
so now you're stuck in this relationship, hoping that it'll get better, trying to look for the good in him, saying,
Yes.
oh, I can change him, I can do all this stuff. So how did it progress to what's the worst thing, other than him still taking sexual favors at his behest. The key component to any law enforcement officer being the best version of themselves is through education. Sherry Alsop is a leader in providing that education to police agencies, preparing them for the all too frequent dealings with sexual assault victims.
You've seen Sherry on episode 169 of the Suffering Podcast. She survived incest and almost daily sexual assault, so she comes from a place of experience and true understanding.
Sherry has the intelligence, commitment, and compassion to open the eyes of those on the front lines, while providing the tools to effectively deal with a difficult situation. Sherry's instruction comes from experience and multiple certifications.
Training with Sherry will offer on-site training, customized schedules, specialized instruction tailored from a victim's perspective.
You are going to hear Sherry's heart-wrenching but inspiring survivor story. Learn proprietary trauma-informed training techniques, uncovered victim-centered interview methods while earning continuing education credits according to your state guidelines. To be the best, you must learn from the best. Let Sherry also guide you through the delicate cases of sexual assault from a victim's point of view.
Be a source of comfort to those victims affected by these traumatic experiences while producing a solid investigation and uncovering details that often go unnoticed.
To find out more or to contact Sherry Alsop, go to sherryalsop.com. That's SherryAllsup.com.
I don't know what the worst thing. I mean, he would choke me, and I would eke out, "You're choking me." And he said, "I'm not choking you. This is a submission hold."
I've never choked. I've choked out my children. No, I've never choked that much. I've wanted to, but I've never done it.
I've been thrown through a wall.
How big was this guy?
He really wasn't that big. I mean, he was like, I don't know, 5'9", 5'10", average build. He wasn't like he was in school. He played tennis.
So at the end of this, we're going to take a picture together, and you'll be able to. I'm 6'3", 6'4", depending on how much I'm shrinking, and you'll be able to see how big Yvonne is. You're not very tall. You're petite, I guess, would be your build.
Yeah.
For a man to throw a woman, listen, there's nobody in the world that can aggravate you like a woman. And I think every guy on the planet, listen, truth hurts. I'm sorry.
Yep.
There is nobody in the world that can get you going. And there's been, where you'll see a guy do this, go, because you don't know what to do. You know you can't. But there's a part of you that we're like,
yeah.
If I just one pass, one pass. But cooler heads prevail.
Yes.
And and then you start thinking about it. You're like, well, what's that prove?
Yeah.
Number one, I'm going to go to jail. You just beat up a woman, which never looks good.
No.
But I do know some women that could kick my ass. So what's the value of doing that? And I never understood that. I never got into that person who consistently abuses their spouse.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Right.
Now, women spousal abuse, that's a whole different thing. That's more of a, if they get a guy that knows that and it's not going to hit back, and they just start. Right. That happens as well. So he would throw you, he would choke you, any punches, any other?
Punch me. He didn't like. He would try not to leave too many marks, so nothing in the face, anything like that.
That's what I tell my wife. Nothing in the face.
That's it.
I got to be on camera. Nothing in the face.
I've been pulled by my hair down the stairs.
And you got a thick head of hair. That's like a lot to grab onto.
That's a lot to grab onto.
Wow.
And I've been stabbed with an ice pick.
Stabbed?
With an ice pick, yeah.
Whoa, hold on. We need to dissect that one a little bit. How? What? Talk about that, please, because not everybody gets stabbed with an ice pick and lives.
It was an argument. Well, he got me. It's right down here. So again, you can't really see it. I was going up to defend myself, and he just whipped around, and I didn't even know he had it.
What did he grab an ice pick for? Was it an argument?
I have I don't even know when it happened. I don't know how he got it. I don't know where it came from.
And who grabs first of all, who has an ice pick? All right, that's the first thing we got to dice. This is 1990, okay? Unless you're living in the 1920s, you don't have an ice pick. There's no need for an ice pick. So what do you got an ice pick for?
Yeah, I don't know.
And he stabs you with an ice pick.
Stabbed me with an ice pick.
Did
And
you-
I was afraid. You know, it was so funny because I thought about calling numerous times, and I had a friend I could confide in, and I will never forget. She said, "This is Colorado Springs, and if they get a domestic violence call, both people get taken in. Period. That is standard." And I had a young baby, and I did not want that baby getting taken into the state's hands, even if it was just for a couple of hours, till we could get this all sorted out. So I never called the cops.
So did you white knuckle through the pain?
Did?
You didn't go to the hospital or anything?
No.
All right, Pat. Get rid of your ice picks, man, because they don't work. Holy cow.
Well, you know what they say. You can't trust anything that can bleed 7 days and live.
This is truth hurts. I'm gonna keep doing those callbacks on that. It had to get pretty. So there's some rotten stuff coming out right now.
Oh, yeah.
There's, I mean, so
That wasn't even the worst of it. But yeah.
So let's dissect up until this point. Rape, physical violence, choking, hair pulling, stabbed, and you're telling me that's not the worst.
No.
So what was the worst thing that was ever done to you?
The worst thing that was ever done was we had just been approved for on-base housing. Officers' quarters opened up, and we moved in on base. And
I know this is, let me pause for a second because I know this is very difficult for you to talk about. And I do appreciate you talking about it. My hope with all of this is not to make you feel uncomfortable. My hope with all of this is somebody who is stuck in your past situation
Absolutely.
has some strength in order to say, you know what, Yvonne got out of it. Let me reach out to her. Let me see how she got out of it.
Absolutely.
Reach out. You know, that's what I want.
100%. And I would welcome that, because if I can help somebody not go through this, then
Your pain wasn't in vain.
exactly.
Yeah.
We were in a house. It was a split level, and we had taken actually a family room downstairs and turned it into the master bedroom. And our daughters were not on the first floor. They were up on the second floor. And the baby monitor went off. My daughter was crying, and I was getting up to go tend to her, and he's like, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going to go check on the baby." And he said, "No, I need you to take care of me first." Whoa. And I said, "I will do that. I got to go check on the baby." And then out comes a gun. He held it to my head. I was on my knees. I had to fillet him. And then I could go check on my crying baby. That was the worst.
This is a special place in hell for this guy.
Yeah.
Okay? Anybody that... There's a young child that's in need. Okay?
Yep.
Aside from the damage that is being done to you, which is awful, there's a young baby who needs care.
Yeah.
They're vulnerable. They're helpless.
Yeah.
They need us. And here this guy is thinking only about his needs. So he is a classic narcissist. I don't think that's being slanderous
No.
in order to say that.
No. And it got worse because by about that time,
Well, did that excite him maybe?
I'm apparently.
You know what I'm saying?
mean,
Like
yeah.
some people get off on that. There's
Yeah.
there's a fetish for every walk of life.
Yeah.
So one thing about me is I have a lot of friends who have gone through bad marriages, and I always talk to them and I say, okay, what's their deal?
Right.
Okay, because their reality is perfectly sane to them.
Right.
To the outside world, it's insane.
It's crazy, right.
But in their own mind, like, this is normal.
Normal.
This is something that happens.
Yeah.
And it's only after you get removed and you look at it how insane this is. So that he's putting his own gratification in front of his child. This is his child.
Right.
I don't
And
understand.
plus, I mean, do you know what a climax is like? And if you've got your finger on the trigger of a gun that's pointing at somebody else's head while you're going through
It's called
that,
sympathetic trigger.
it's just like, is this thing going to go off?
Boy, I so that's pretty bad. I gotta be honest with you. That might be one of the worst things I've heard in a long time. I've heard some awful shit in here. How long did this go on for?
It went on. That kind of, in a way, it became a turning point. Not so much because of me, but because his daughter from his first marriage was starting to act out. At first, we thought it was jealousy. New baby in the house. Makes perfect sense. But it went beyond that. She actually actively started trying to hurt me and the baby.
How old was his daughter?
5. 5. There was one time I was coming down the stairs carrying the baby, and out of the blue, from behind, reached over, and I got hit in the back of the head with a hockey stick. Downstairs I go. That was the 5-year-old.
I would assume that she's learning behavior on, oh, this is how you treat somebody.
Yes. Well, that's when we started. So that we got her into therapy, and it seemed like it was getting worse, and she was acting out even more. And then she started drawing pictures on her walls of graves, of cars with bodies on them, you know.
Listening to a lot of The Cure.
Yeah.
You know.
And we found out that it came through. So let me back up. He thought I was overreacting. It was like, she's really, you know, she's drawing these pictures. She's acting out against me, against the baby. We're getting her into therapy. She's still drawing the pictures. And then one day he comes into her room and she's drawing a car with a body on it. And he said, "What is that? Who is that?" And she said, "That's you."
Was he abusing her?
That's what we found out once, because we called the therapist. The therapist said she needs to go in to, you know. And
Was he physically or sexually abusing her?
I'm getting a little ahead of myself on this, but basically we found out through her that she was being physically abused. Now, from what I remember of everything and what I could gather, it wasn't going on while I was with him. It predated me. But she would recount stories of being in a dog crate. Because you could, you know, by she's describing it, she was in a box that had holes all over it and a door. Mm-hmm. And she would talk to the therapist about how she would have to dodge because a knife would just randomly poke through the holes. And she was dodging these obstacles.
Your husband at the time, was he married prior to you?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever get in contact with the first wife?
I did. After I left, after we split up, I did.
And what was her? What did she say?
She was abused as well.
So you were just the target, and when the first wife wasn't there, it was the daughter, and when you came into the picture, you were the target.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming there's probably a target after you.
Oh, yeah. Well, based on what I've heard, yeah.
You know, because this is somebody who is a predator.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes.
So we go back and forth. We're in the courts. There's guardian ad litem. There's this, there's that. And there's a huge blow up. We had friends over, and he was drunk, and he was getting abusive. And so his friend took him out into the garage, and I sat with the wife, and we're talking. And she said, "You got to get out." She said, "You haven't gotten out for you, for whatever reason. But now you've got that baby. You've got to get out. Because if he's gone after his first daughter and he's gone after you, it's only a matter of time.
So that person, whoever that was, I'm a big believer there's certain angels in your life.
Yeah.
And that person was an angel to you because they recognized your blind spot.
Yeah.
Because you probably at this point were in protective mode, in self-survival.
Right.
You weren't thinking that.
Oh, yeah.
But now, all of a sudden, she just woke you up to your blind spot, and it's bigger than you.
Yeah.
You know, and a parent who looks at their child for the first time and doesn't know what pure, true love is should never be a parent. They should give the baby up for adoption, give the baby a shot. Mm-hmm. Because I know every parent who looks at their child, real parents, mm-hmm. they feel the same thing. And now this is bigger than you. Yeah. But how much strength did it have to take for you to push the button, pull the pin, and actually leave him? Like, what was that day like?
She said, do you have someplace to go? Because I'm not going to leave this house until you and your baby are out. And so I had friends. We were living in Colorado Springs. I had friends in Denver, and we went to Denver. I called them and said, can we come stay with you for a while? And that's what started the whole transitioning of it, of getting out of that.
So his daughter is in a facility.
Yes.
Okay, so she's safe.
Mm-hmm.
Now you take your child so you can be safe. What kind of retribution did you get from him?
I finally resettled because I was working in Colorado Springs. So I had to go back because that's a big commute mm-hmm. to do. And I, was making decent money. I was able to get a place on my own. And he would stalk. He would stalk me. And he would be at the daycare. He wanted nothing. He didn't want to see his daughter the whole time we were separated. Before the divorce proceedings started, he did not want to have anything to do with her. And the minute, we filed for divorce, then all of a sudden it's, well, I've got my rights and I want to see him, this, that, and the other. And I was able to get supervised visits through the court. And that became a whole other nightmare in and of itself.
So the one thing that I do know about narcissists don't have relationships. They have possessions.
Correct.
And you were his possession.
Correct.
And I'll be damned if I'm going to let my possession leave.
Correct.
Like, how dare you? If he left you, it would be a different story.
Right.
But since you left him, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So I would call the police. They said you should get a restraining order so that because he's got no reason to come around here. Supervised visits, it's neutral location. There's no reason for him to be here. So I applied, and the judge, granted the TRO and said, it's a piece of paper. It's not going to stop a knife. It's not going to stop a bullet. It's just a piece of paper. I said, I understand. And he said, I also think it's good. And he ordered that I went through domestic violence counseling as well, which is where I started learning about the cyclical nature of abuse and trigger points. Because what I would do without realizing what I was doing, it was a matter of, I know there's going to be a beating coming. I can't control that, but I can control when it happens.
So did it happen?
It would. So whenever I would feel strong, I'd push the buttons and say, let's do this while I'm feeling strong, like I can stand and fight, because I don't want to get caught in a weak moment.
So you have a temporary restraining order, and he's beating you?
No, this was before the TRO.
Oh, okay, all right.
And
I
so,
got you.
but I learned about all of this through the domestic violence classes.
You're starting to take some of your power back.
I'm starting to take some of that back, and we're talking to the counselor, talking to the other ladies, telling them about the situation, telling them about how I'm, trying to separate my money and secure my funds and this, that, and the other. And they're listening to my story, and everybody's quiet. And the leader of the group said, "Ladies?" And one of the women said, "She'll be lucky if she's alive this time next year." And they put me into, it's called the DIVERT program, which is a domestic violence enhanced response team. And they gave me a special pager beeper type thing that all I had to do is push a button, and they would dispatch the police immediately, because I was at what they would say was a high risk for fatality. And so we lived like that for a little while. And I found, when I was cleaning out my papers from the house, because they took him out and had an officer with him, and I was getting my stuff, some stuff that exposed him and how he had tampered with his military records and covered this up and covered that, and actually went to the main repository at Randolph Air Force Base and was able to steal records out of his official file, so that there were misconduct issues that were now, there was no proof of them, except he kept a copy of it. And that is what allowed him to get his promotion to major.
Thank God criminals are dumb.
And so, you know, was I being a little spiteful? Yeah. I turned him over to a CO. Here comes the court-martial. And then the domestic violence stuff gets tossed on top of the court-martial. And so he's under, you know, he gets court-martialed. He's found guilty. He's under house arrest until they can take him. They actually sent him to Leavenworth. And I remember my mom saying the weekend before he was set to go, she said, "I don't want you guys in that house alone. Go stay with friends." So we did. We went up to Denver. Now we have an alarm. I had a security alarm on my house. My brother was very...
Your house in Colorado Springs.
Yes. My brother was really upset with everything that was going on. He said, "I'm paying for this. I want you safe, and I want you to use it all of the time." And I said, "Okay." About 3 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call from Colorado Springs Police Department saying, "We're at your residence. Your alarm's gone off. They weren't able to get you at the home phone." I had my friend's phone as an emergency number. And they said, "Somebody's been in your house. It doesn't look like anything's been disturbed or taken. We understand there's a restraining order. We would like for you to come down tomorrow. We'll walk through with you. What you need to know is that the alarm was not triggered coming in. It was deliberately triggered upon exit." And, you know.
I think he wanted you to know that he can
He'd
get
been
you.
there. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the way he did it was, I went up, nothing was taken, but I have this cordial set that my aunt had given me. And it was in my bedroom, set up on a dresser, and one glass was turned upside down for those who are gone, but not forgotten. Mm-hmm. And that was it. I said, "I know exactly who did this."
But they were never able to prove it was him.
No.
But,
And then,
but you know.
but you know. And then the next day, they confirmed he was gone, and he spent some time in Leavenworth.
And you get to start your new life. Once you stood up to him, though, and he held so much power over you, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Where he was able to manipulate you in certain ways, but once you started taking that power back, and how long did it take where he didn't hold that power over you anymore?
A while, because after he got out of Leavenworth, then the actual divorce proceedings had begun. The judge bifurcated the case, so the divorce was granted, the custody issue lingered. He was now getting occasional unsupervised visits, and our daughter would come back, and she would be talking about strange things. that would go on between the two of them. And things like baby carrots being inserted into certain areas.
Oh, my God.
And so I took her to the pediatrician. The pediatrician had physical findings. We would go to the court. It's almost like you can't believe it actually happened. The judge that was assigned the custody case didn't want to hear it, wouldn't put the pediatrician on the stand. And I couldn't figure it out. And it was looking really bad. Now, he had since moved from Colorado to Ohio and was trying to get 50-50 parenting time. This child is 3, okay? How do you do 50-50 parenting time between 2 states with a 3-year-old? And I said, I can't stay. I can't stay with this judge because he's not even listening to a pediatrician. I got to get out. So I started looking for a job back home. And I was able to get a job, petitioned the court. They said, you know what, since you're not going to be living here, Dad doesn't live here, sure, we'll transfer it. Texas can have this. This is fine.
Yeah, they're going to dump this leaky bag of shit as fast as they can.
So the job I got, and you'll like this, was working as a legal secretary for the civil division of the district attorney's office in my home county. And I figured if it continues, then I know that if a special prosecutor is going to be needed, since I'm working for the DA's office, that they're going to go for the top criminal defense attorney. So I'm already starting to lay out my groundwork to protect us. And my daughter would go to daycare after she would have, because he would actually make a point of flying down to Texas to be able to spend
Did he
time
get
with her.
dishonorably discharged?
He did.
Okay.
He did. And she would have these stories that she would tell. She wasn't telling me. She was telling other kids in her daycare. She was telling her teachers. One time she was with the civil district attorney chief, my boss. She was in her office, and
Did they finally believe you?
they did.
They did.
Texas believed me.
Which is odd because Texas is one of the few states in the union that is, from what I understand, is more, they lean towards the male a little bit
Yeah.
more. Like most states in the union lean towards the female, but Texas seems to go the other way. So for you to do that, it must have been some hard evidence. So when you finally get free of this guy, was he arrested?
They took it to grand jury. He was indicted. It was going to go to trial, and it's very interesting because they appointed the special prosecutor, and within an hour of the special prosecutor being appointed, his office actually got a phone call from my then ex-husband to see if he could retain his services for this. And it took a while, but at that time, my daughter was in therapy, and the therapist said to the special prosecutor, this cannot go to trial. This time, she's 4 years old. He's going to have a right to face his accuser. And they were afraid that as a 4-year-old, she would choke, not be able to testify, and the therapist thought this was even worse, was she musters up the ability to testify, and nobody believes her. And that would have destroyed her. And so the prosecutor took that under advisement and offered him a plea. and made sure I was okay with that. And I would rather my daughter be safe. So we were good with that. And he lost custody, obviously. His parental rights were terminated.
Still to this day?
To this day. And he was to have no contact with her until she turned 18.
Did he ever contact her?
Not until after she turned 18.
So the damage on something like this has ripple effects.
Yes.
Now, here's what I always hate. And when I was dating, I always used to, because I always ended up doing time for other people's crimes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your partners thereafter also did time for this person's crime. Because your trust is destroyed. And this is why, obviously, why you were a cynic, because, duh, you know, you got stabbed with an ice pick with a implement from the 1920s. Do you think that'll ever go away?
No.
Now, your ability, you almost have superpowers. Now, you understand that, right? I'm going to explain this to you. You have a superpower, and I guarantee you have a superpower. How many times have you been in a social gathering and you've seen a woman who is in where you were, and you've been able to look at them and you've been able to identify, say, something right here. Mm-hmm. Is that true? Now, how do I know that? Because we've never discussed that. Because you have that superpower. So suffering gives you certain superpowers to identify that same type of suffering in other people.
Yeah.
And that's your power. So I'll put it to you this way. So the guy who shot at me, I used to hate him. Mm-hmm. Over time, I became very empathetic towards him. And I said, you know what? You put me right in the spot that I was supposed to be in. This guy, and we won't even say his name because we won't give him any type of power in here. But this guy, think about what he did. You should be thanking him. Think about what he did. He brought you to Pat, and Pat's a wonderful man.
Yes, he is.
He brought you to where you are in your life right now. Mm-hmm. He brought you, are you still close with your daughter?
Yes.
Okay. He brought you closer to your daughter. He gave you strength that you could not obtain on your own.
True.
So if you turn his power on its ear and start, and whatever vengeance, whatever fear you have, and it becomes empathy, all of a sudden all the power he has over you or had over you is gone. And you start pitying him. And then you start looking at, you know what? It was awful. It was horrible what you put me through, but you put me right in the spot that I was supposed to be, right where I was supposed to belong.
Yeah.
Is that a fair statement?
I think that's a very fair statement. You know, I was able to get to the point where I forgave him for what he did to me. I can't forgive him for what he did to our daughter.
Fair enough.
But that's not mine to forgive.
Now, your daughter have any ripple effects?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Even though she was so young that it's
Oh, yeah.
it's a distant memory, that stuff gets ingrained into your DNA.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, jeez. Why do parents, like some people just don't deserve to be, they don't
Yeah.
deserve the pleasure of being a parent.
Yeah. It was devastating. I mean, I even had to, before Colorado fully transferred everything down, I actually had to pay for my daughter's therapist in Texas, my therapist in Texas, to go to Colorado to testify on our behalves. And I had to pay for a court-appointed psychologist to do a psych eval on me and on my daughter to make sure that I'm not the crazy one. And our lovely narcissist, as only narcissists can do, said, he can evaluate me too. And I'll show you it's not me. And so they did. And they said, no, the daughter is highly intelligent. She is afraid of the father. There's no evidence it's because of anything that mom's doing. It's an organic fear within her. Mom, she's struggling, but she's getting there. She's also an intelligent person. She's got situational depression, which is understandable because she's making reports that abuse is happening to her child and nobody's believing her, and she's being rendered helpless.
It's like you're standing in a crowd screaming and nobody's listening.
So, of course, she's going to have some depression and anxiety and just general issue. And I said, but Dad, I've read about him, never actually met one till now, is a narcissist, but he's also a psychopath and a sociopath. And I'm like, okay, I can pick him. I went for a hat trick right
Sorry,
off the
Pat.
bat.
Sorry, Pat. I didn't mean to bring that out. I apologize. But your life is beautiful on so many different levels now.
Absolutely.
And without all this stuff, you would have never came to New Jersey.
That's
you never
true.
found any of this stuff. But that power that you have in order to identify in other people, where that angel who took you in the garage and did that for you, have you done that to somebody else?
I have. I try to help people as much as I can.
Because
Whether.
you owe. I know
Absolutely.
I know.
Oh,
you,
absolutely.
I know you've been through enough where you think there's nothing in this world for free.
Right.
Okay, you owe that debt to somebody else
Absolutely.
to get them out,
Absolutely.
and that's your path to healing.
Absolutely.
So, is there any? We're coming to the end of this thing here. Is there anything you want to plug? This story is just—it's crazy. It's honestly crazy. But I want to make sure people know how to find you, especially if they're in a place where even I hope nobody's in a place like this, but I know there are, where somebody can find you and reach out to you so you can give them some guidance or a suggestion or just an ear to listen to.
Absolutely. I'm on Instagram. It's Yvonne.go_figure, I believe.
We'll have a link to that
We'll
in our
have a
show.
link.
Yeah, in our show notes.
I don't go to myself very often on Instagram. But you can reach out to me through there.
And if you can't find Yvonne, reach out to me. I will get you in contact with her.
Absolutely.
So like I said, we're coming to the end of this thing here. Our hour here is almost up. And you've been through an enormous, you got a crazy story. And I know this is the first show you've ever done. So you got a crazy story. But it had to teach you something. Because if it didn't teach you something, it's really a wasted event in your life. What do you think going through all this stuff, this suffering of a narcissist or narcissism has taught you?
Dig the hole first. No. You got to keep your eyes open, and you got to trust your gut. And if it doesn't feel right, there's a reason for it. And nobody deserves to be under anybody's thumb. It's not living. You're not going to fix them. You're not going to make it better. If they don't want to improve themselves, there's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do is help yourself and be stronger. Talk to somebody. Whether it's a friend, a stranger, a priest, a police officer, the librarian, it doesn't matter. Talk to somebody. Because you can't do it alone.
And you don't have to. That's the beautiful thing. You know, one of the things I always talk about is be buffalo, not cattle.
Yes.
Right? You've heard me say this. Cattle, when the storm hits the prairie, will scatter.
Right.
That's not where we want to be as human beings. We want to be buffalo. Buffalo, instinctually, when the storm hits, they herd up. They will.
Yep.
There's actual pictures of it, and it's a beautiful thing.
It is.
And only those people who have been through real trauma will know the meaning of that, because they are in the outer rims of that circle, of that herd. I can't thank you enough for telling that story. It was horrifying.
Thank you.
But it was powerful.
Thank you. I'm here. If I can help anybody, I'm here.
I think you just did. Now I got to stop. No, I'm not even. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, the suffering of narcissism with Yvonne Elwood. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. We all have blind spots. No always means no. Tom. Who has an ice pick anymore? You can't change somebody. Narcissists have possessions, not relationships. Nobody deserves to be under anybody's thumb. But most importantly, just like you, take your power back.
Absolutely.
And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. And of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. And when that narcissist tells you, come this way, everything you need, I can provide, you turn around, you look them right in the eye, and what do you say? You say, not today.